Is this helpful?
It's because we've been listening to There Will Be Dungeons, and we know what you like.
Yeah.
Okay, good point. All right.
Bodily function noises.
Episode. This is 230. 230 episodes. It begins in. Wait, do we know who's introing?
Yes,
me.
Crofton.
Okay, I just. It begins in 3, 2, 1.
Hello, everybody. Welcome to Good, Bad, or Bullshit. My name's Crofton Steers. I am the road to WrestleMania of this podcast. With me, as always, are my two co-hosts. I'm talking about the Super Bowl of this podcast, Bo Schwartz, and the State of the Union of this podcast. I'm talking about Mike Hodgins. Welcome, gentlemen. How is that for topical?
State of the Union. I missed that. And you know what? I don't feel like I'm going to go and try to catch up on it either.
Wow.
What a
Bo,
State
watch
of the Union thing to say.
Well, did you watch the Super Bowl, Bo?
I did not.
Did not watch that.
Wow.
What's the other one? WrestleMania?
The road to WrestleMania, Mike. We're on the road to WrestleMania right now.
Wow, I like how he made us the pinnacle of things, and he made himself secondary to the big event.
It's
because in his mind, it's the greatest.
He's so humble. He's just the humblest.
It's true. I'm humble. You guys like the Super Bowl, Bo. There's nothing bigger than that. Certainly not the State of the Union.
The Super Bowl is not that. You know how many people watch the Super Bowl? I hear this stat. I love it. It's like 400 million people watch the Super Bowl. And then someone told me that you take a Premier League soccer game, any Premier League soccer game, and it's 400 million people watching that. Any game, not the finals. It's just like the Americans are so self-centered. They're like, everyone watches the Super Bowl. It's like no one gives a fuck about football unless you live in the United States.
Or you're Maroon 5.
I heard they blew.
We have our own football league here in Canada, I'd like to point out.
Yeah, and doubly no one cares about that.
Did you know Dwayne "The Rock" Johnson played for it?
Which team?
The Calgary Stampeders.
Oh, one of the good ones.
And,
there's only like 3.
To be fair, when I say play, he was like a bench warmer a little bit.
The Rock?
Yeah, I know.
I guess the coach couldn't smell what he was cooking.
I'm not even going to entertain that. But believe it or not, The Rock was not amazing at one thing, and it was football, where he was only pretty good.
I really believe that. He's not amazing at a lot of things.
No, The Rock is amazing at everything, Bo. If you're not going to be serious, don't be on this show.
There's a lot of things, you know.
Yeah.
I'm serious.
When The Rock, every once in a while, he's like, oh, I might run for president. I'm like, fuck, if he does that, just give it to him now, because
I hope he doesn't.
Who would run against him? Someone else?
Some old guy.
I hope he does, because I find that it's like America is just like treading closer to the movie Idiocracy.
It's literally the movie being profit. You can't have a wrestler president of America. I'm sorry.
I would honestly argue, and this is where we're at now with the United States. I would argue that the reality show host, a president of the United States they have currently, is a step, a wrestler would be a step up.
It's a step down.
A
wrestler would be
especially it's The Rock. He's the great one. You don't go one-on-one with the great one.
I just don't want what's that guy's name? The crazy one.
God, you're gonna have to be more specific.
I can't think of his name. I don't know. Just pick any one of them that are like none of those guys as president, please.
No.
Have you guys seen Idiocracy?
Yes, a long time ago.
They've
made other movies since then, Mike. I feel like you talk about that movie every third episode. It's the last movie
it's prophetic. It's becoming.
It's true though.
It's becoming reality.
It's true. It's true. But Crofton's point is better in the sense that I think we'd rather have a wrestler for president, even though it doesn't affect us because we're not Americans. But
and then maybe, Mike, you would watch the State of the Union, because it would be awesome.
It would probably be he pulls in his monster truck. And...
Yeah. If you smell what The Rock is
Isn't
cooking.
that Stone Cold that drives in with the truck? Smashes
Doesn't matter.
He's like, all right, let's get the president or whatever.
Speaking of driving things in with a truck, Mike, why don't you drive in the old random topic generator and yank one out? Huh? Is that how we say it?
Yeah.
Are you gonna yank it?
Mm.
Yeah, let's start it up.
Well, you have to start it. He always plays this game.
My fellow Americans, the state of our union is strong. It's always strong, incidentally. It's never not strong.
The topic today is hypocrisy.
Hypocrisy?
Hypocrisy.
Yo, you say one thing, but then you said another. I had sex with your mother last night. Boom, 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 boom. That's how hip-hop works. Hypocrisy.
That sounds pretty good, Bo.
Yeah, you know, just before we delve into hypocrisy, I do think that it would be funny to do an episode one time where we each have a challenge that we have to do throughout the episode. Like, we draw a topic, because now we've gotten good at not researching and talking about random topics. But imagine if Bo had to deliver everything, all his points in verse or rhyme. You know, like throughout, that'd be a challenge.
I couldn't do it. I mean,
No, I know for you it would be
hard
another
for
challenge. Like, you would only have to say positive things about something. That would be a challenge.
only positive things. Oh
Yeah.
man,
And then it'd be like,
Yeah,
it'd
no
be the worst
cynicism
topic.
allowed. It would be like, if you make a cynical statement, we'd shock you.
Yeah.
or I'd have to not reference where I heard something. It'd
Yeah.
be like on the
Sam Harris
podcast I heard.
Yeah. Yeah. There would be like a list of things that Mike could not say in an episode. He couldn't say Aeon Magazine. He couldn't talk about Idiocracy. And he couldn't talk about Sam Harris or whatever.
Actually,
like,
both
And
those
who's
things
that
are dated.
author that you
I
really
haven't.
like? That author, Phil McGraw?
Phil McGraw.
Oh, what's the author's name?
Huh?
isn't Phil
Magellan
McGraw
Sampson.
Dr. Phil?
No, the book that you're always reading about the power structures of the world and shit like that. You know, about democracy.
I read a lot of different books. I don't know.
Yeah,
what,
but he was a big author. You're telling me you got to read all of his books. You're obsessed with
all of
him.
his books. I don't think I've read any authors all of their
Well,
books.
you read a lot of them.
Is it
Like power
who cares?
structures.
I can't think of anyone's name right now.
And it was like, you know, you've talked about it so much on the show. I can't believe you're drawing a blank. To do with, you know, how democracy's a sham or something like that, and capitalism's bad.
There's a lot of books about that book. I read a
Marx?
few of them.
Yeah, that you've read though. Have
I
you
can
read a
think
lot of
again
books
couple.
about capitalism?
Yeah,
Probably.
I've read a few.
So hypocrisy, folks. When we were talking about this podcast, sometimes we'll get meta and we'll talk about like, oh, we've done 230 episodes. You could play any clip of an old version of Mike, Bo, or Crofton pretty much arguing with themselves on any given topic. We've probably been all sides of a position, and even it depends on our mood of the day. I think we all recognize that. Like, every once in a while,
Sure.
we'll mention something, like I'll say to Bo, hey, Bo, in episode 187, you said this, and that is completely the opposite of what you're saying now. And in a way, that
That's
feels
not
like, oh, it's a poison
hypocrisy.
pill. It's like winning an argument. But the reality is that everybody, I think, is hypocritical at one point or another, you know, and that's not necessarily makes him a bad person, or it's negatively associated, but it's not
Well,
necessarily a negative thing.
It's such a pejorative people love to throw at someone. You hypocrite. You know, it's always like dripping with venom when you call someone hypocrite. But it's like doing this podcast has made me well aware of the fact that like we're all hypocrites to some degree. But certainly like, yeah, just because of like the way you feel a certain day or just like the twist of a certain topic can throw you in a different direction. And I think it's like that's why like and politicians get bit by this a lot because they said something, you know, a few years ago and then
Mostly has
they
to
have a
do with
different
sex.
stance now.
It mostly has to do with the fact
there's
that you know, a marriage is a man and a woman, and then you know they've got a young boy off on, you know, young teenage 18-year-old man, and they're living this whole other life. Like, that is hypocrisy.
Oh yeah, and that's the thing, eh? There's the general hypocrisy, the day-to-day stuff, but that Mike and I were sort of alluding to. But you're right, Bo. There's like these extreme cases, and I think that's where the pejorative comes from. Like, really, like, you know, and that's a really bad one. but something like a vegan who swears like they will never eat meat, but has like enjoys leather paraphernalia, leather jacket and leather whatever, like that's sort of like that's a
Sure.
hypocritical
Yeah.
action. And I could see
Is
why that would be sort of like you would look down on somebody like that, you would
well,
be
I
frustrated with
think
somebody like that.
hypocrisy is by definition pejorative. Like, is there a case where it isn't?
Well, that's why I know I would sort of question it, because I mean I think it's become that because it's I don't know, people are so.
I just think we're not perfect, and so we can have ideas that we don't realize conflict with one another, or priorities in our lives that conflict that are not easily reconciled.
What if you are
like
perfect?
how it's like how I love the idea of the hive mind and sharing consciousness, but I do love the spirit of individuality. I can't have it both ways. Like one, I should be advocating one way or the other. It's hypocritical.
Right.
Is it? Or is it just I can see both sides of an argument and I can
see what's attractive about both?
Yeah. What?
But I think I
see
think
what's attractive about both, like
yeah, like I mean there's a sense that when you're thinking about an object, but I think that when you're hypocritical, you come out with a stance on something. Like how Mike's picture is standing completely still because his internet, I think, is going nuts.
Yeah, the more staunch an advocate you are for something, the more likely you are to be somebody that's like they could be seen as a big hypocrite if you somehow deviate from what you're advocating, or you go in the complete other direction. And I do think people are allowed to change their opinion or evolve their thinking. In politics, it's a bit of a poison pill. Like, I mean, if you change your opinion at any given point in politics, everybody will sort of say, "Oh, you're a flip-flopper," or "Oh, you're this or that," or it's bad. It's considered a bad thing, even though I think it shows like an organized mind. It shows somebody that's receptive to new information and new opinions. But I think the reason hypocrite has that pejorative connotation is the exact examples that we've been given of somebody who's being a strong advocate for something, maybe publicly, but privately acts in a way that's contrary to what they're saying. And if Bo was the biggest advocate of recycling, if he was on all the Ottawa buses being like, "Gotta recycle, folks," and then just shoves all this shit in one garbage bag and throws it out in his private life, I mean, that's a hypocrite, and that's really like that idea really frustrates me.
Yeah.
Well,
go ahead.
it frustrates it frustrates everyone, but it's like it's sort of one of those things, and I guess why I have sort of a on things where it's like I must look like a hypocrite all the time, but it's like sometimes like you can't help it. So like basically I was thinking about this. Basically, if you're someone who like cares about climate change and acknowledges that things are happening in a bad way, and then you might be impassioned at someone like, we need to do more, and then that person might see that you own a car and be like, "You fucking hypocrite, look at you in your car driving around polluting like everyone else. I thought you cared about climate change." And you want to say like, "Well, I live in a society that forces me to own a car, more or less, and I mean I only drive my car like twice a week, but that wouldn't matter." Or any number of things. Like I'm also quite anti consumer. Like I don't buy a lot of stuff, but sometimes I buy stuff, right? and if I were to, it would be very easy to just be like, "Oh, look at your nice new jacket,
you fucking hypocrite, Mike."
Exactly. But it's just like, to some extent, like you can, like I feel like I hold a lot of positions which put me instantly into the hypocrite camp. The hippocampus
is a part of the brain, if I'm not mistaken.
Yes, I know.
It's where the hypocrisy comes from.
Yes, it's the hypocrisy center.
Is
of the
it
brain.
just me, or
the
is Mike
hip
like extra
is
smug
part
today?
of your body?
Is it just me, or is Mike extra smug today? Where he's like, I'm like, that book on capitalism. He's like, I read many books on capitalism.
Well, I've read.
Like,
I've read some.
Is where you're like, yeah, I know.
You're calling me smug. Well, you asked me how many books I read. I said I've read a few.
in a fun way, just as a mood today. Just
Are you annoyed? Well, why don't you read a book on
I'm-
capitalism? You're like, no,
it would be hypocritical because I espouse not reading for the most part.
not reading. You
I don't
use the
espouse
old
that.
bow.
I don't espouse that actually.
Yeah, you do like reading.
That I'm being jokey. So yeah. What were you saying?
World,
Before I
which you
interrupted
didn't, which you didn't create. Oh, what's going on?
We're losing people. Discord is
I know.
being shitty.
Internet's squirrely today. So yeah, what I was we're all stuck living in the society into which we were born. None of us made it, right? And you can hold views, which I do, which are just counter to that. I don't think the world should be this way. I don't even we did one about private property, and I was for sure a huge hypocrite on that. But I was like, I don't even necessarily believe in private property. I know, Bo, you don't either. But I have a bunch, right? It's like, so I'm like by definition a hypocrite.
Yeah, I don't want anyone using my stuff. It's mine.
But it's like, it's just like you live in the world as it is, and you can still like say or have views or think that something should be changed, but you're still part of that system, or you have to still do certain things that make you seem like a hypocrite. I feel like to live, like, is there anyone who goes through their life and it's like everything lines up? They've never said something was contradictory. They've never done actions which are contradictory to statements they made.
Excuse me.
I think everyone is a hypocrite.
Yeah, to be fair, when you put it like that, yes, everybody is. It's just that you can be a staunch advocate for something, and you can be like, there are levels. Like there's levels here. There's nuances. Like when Bo was giving that example of like, you're a politician that espouses, marriage is sacred and it's only between a man and a woman. Adam and Eve, not Adam and Steve. And then meanwhile, you're having sex with the male page in the bathroom, right? Like that's really, really hypocritical. We're owning a car when you're like an advocate for climate, like to address climate change, is not really like I get it. It could be seen as hypocritical if you're being really orthodox about something. If you're being like, it's got to be this way or the highway. But like, there are like levels of extreme hypocrisy that just hit you in the face. Like, and for me, like the example I gave earlier of the staunch vegan that would, wear a leather jacket and have a leather purse and be really big into leather. I mean, that would be, if the reason for their veganism, of course, is the protection of animals and stuff like that, and not wanting to, then that would be like, that's for me an extreme example of being a hypocrite. Whereas there's, everybody is in like little nuanced ways, because we do live in a society. So it's like one of those things that you can always fall back on, being like, yeah, well, obviously I can have an opinion on something, but I'm part of a society. Like you have a lot of property, or a fair amount of property, but if you became like a really big property baron, like if you had like apartment buildings here and there and all that sort of stuff, and then we're becoming like a politician that ran on a principle of like, we need to abolish private property, I would say then you would be like a grade A hypocrite, So there's just these levels.
But I think maybe also part of it is not to give myself some credit, but like I admit that something if I ever became a politician, I would say something like that. Like, I do think renting is exploiting, and I'm a landlord. I exploit people, but at least I think I acknowledge that that's true, and I think maybe that's part of the problem. Like with Bo's example, like there's something, if you're on a high horse about something and imply that you are beyond reproach in that the thing you're talking about, and then it becomes like that you do exactly that, that's different, I guess, than being like, oh, I do the thing, I believe this, but for X and Y reason I'm sort of stuck here, like I think that really softens it. I think any like holier than thou attitude, which then proves that you're a hypocrite on, that really annoys.
Or awareness. So I'm curious about this, because you're talking about awareness. Do you think Bo, your example before about the politician that was the advocate for like, sanctity of marriage, but is boning the
basically
page,
blockading, LGBTQ LGBTQ, what? LGBTQ2?
LGBTQ2.
Yeah.
You know, basically anything that isn't a man and a woman who advocates and who's responsible for helping to enact law that dictates who gets to, enjoy marriage. So that person is out there publicly doing that and then engaging in activity contradictory to what they stand for as a person in the society.
So do you think that person that in that example that you're giving is like in Mike's example of him running for office, he's aware of his hypocrisy. Right. Do you think that person blocks out their hypocrisy and still believes firmly what they're saying, or is aware that they are a hypocrite?
I think we in life we tend to rationalize things. Either we hide them and we know they're there and we know we're being a hypocrite if we ever got found out, and then we're a sociopath, I think, and then we just do it anyway. Or we're in a place of irreconcilable differences where we're trying to say, like, well, in my case, it's okay. Like, you have to understand politics, involves doing things you don't like to do. And sometimes that means advocating for things you don't necessarily believe in because you need to stay on the party line, right? Like, or the corporate line, or you have to be a part of something bigger than yourself, and your individuality gets brushed to the side. So you say, well, it's the land of the free. I can still have my individuality, but here I'm going to advocate this thing and just kind of coast along on this situation. But you'll get called out as a hypocrite because everybody trades on their reputation. Whether you're a politician or a plumber, school teacher, you trade on your reputation, which is what people can come to expect of you. If they expect shitty things from you, then, you've done a good job if you're a shitty person. But it works both ways. If you're a good person but behave shitty because of, low self-esteem or something like that, you're also being a hypocrite because you maybe believe in more positive things but behave in a way contradictory to your beliefs. It's when your behavior doesn't match what you represent.
Right.
People.
But do you think, like, say Donald Trump, right? Yeah. Donald Trump is he's big advocate about like illegal immigration and blocking illegal immigrants from coming in. And then he hires a ton of illegal immigrants to work at Trump properties, right? They're all kind of being fired right now as because they realize it doesn't look good. So do you think that he is aware, like he's clearly a hypocrite. He's engaged in this is just one example of him being a hypocrite.
Sure. A pure American country would use legal workers. I guess.
Do you think that hypocrites, like grade A hypocrites, like highest level, public advocates for something that are doing something the complete opposite privately, do you think they have I guess my thing is like if they rationalize, like you say, and just believe that they're not hypocrites, that's a different level, I think, than what Mike was saying earlier, which is like he is aware he would run for office to get rid of private property, but yet have all this private property, but be aware of his hypocrisy and perhaps even own it in the statements that he makes. Do you think that these high-level hypocrites, like, just have convinced themselves that essentially they're not hypocrites? Because that would be the worst.
We all do it. We all do it. Think about parents. Parents everywhere. Almost everyone's a parent. And I have the experience.
That's not true.
A lot of people are parents, and I had parents. If you aren't a parent, you've had a parent, or you know someone with a parent. I don't know. You've dealt with.
Yeah, there's a lot of parents around. I agree.
And if you are a parent, you should listen to Dungeons and Diapers with Crofton and Ryan.
You have dealt with, as a young person, a person with not full control over what you can and cannot do. Someone's exerted control in you in that maternal or paternal or whatever way. And what definitely comes to light, and you have to admit this, is you're trying to raise, assuming you have a moral orientation, you're trying to raise your children to survive in the world without you, do some good, maybe take advantage of opportunities that you let slip through your fingers. So you're like, I didn't practice that thing I should have practiced, so child, please be disciplined and practice. And of course, they're going to give you a hard time and not do this stuff. But you insist on training them in a certain way. Meanwhile, in your own personal life, you might be like, well, I told my child that we have to do homework every night. And now I'm at home from work, and I'm going to play video games. Even though I've got a garage to fix, and I could be working on improving my station to do some other things, I'm just going to sit here and play video games. But I'm going to tell my kid that there's going to school, and then there's homework to do, and then it's really important. And you end up, and children, I think many, many children pick up on this way early. You end up learning the lessons of hypocrisy. Now, the parent's not saying, oh, I'm going to be a hypocrite and really fuck over my kid. It's going to be hilarious. No, we've rationalized the way that we live to be like, this is what it's like being an adult in the world. And you have to make compromises and decisions that you're not always happy with. And you're going to tell that to your kids, but you're not, I mean, I'm generalizing here because I don't want to say that's you as parents, but I'm saying my experience has been, it's very easy to look at what a parent tells you, and I know in my case that's true, as hypocritical and not with any ill intent. It's just you want the best for your kids and you realize you're not the best. So how do you give your kid the best when you're not? Like, you can't put blood from a stone, but you try anyways because you love the little shits and you want.
It's the do what I say, not what I do sort of thing.
I'm sure many parents have said that, you know, and it's like, I want a Pepsi. You had a Pepsi. Well, I'm an adult. I can have a Pepsi, but really, you shouldn't be drinking the Pepsi because you're telling your kid not to fucking drink the Pepsi. So, it's hypocrisy.
I'm older.
It's hypocrisy. And it's rationalized because life's hard and it's okay in my case. And you'd understand if you were in my shoes and all that shit that comes along with it. And I think that happens in politics and all kinds of walks of life. I think it's a fundamental aspect of the struggle of being human. And having to raise humans and to lead humans and to interact and have a reputation. So
why is hypocrisy good?
It isn't. It's a pejorative term. There's no good. There's zero good in hypocrisy.
Well, it would only be good in the sense that it's kind of like, because I mean, look, even what Bo was talking about, and some of the other things we've touched on, it's kind of like it's almost impossible to get away from it, in the sense that, and I think this because some of this stuff is nuanced, or a lot of it is. I mean, there's the outright hypocrisy, which like everyone doesn't like. It's like it annoys us morally. But all the like other base hypocrisies, like if you're a parent scolding your kid about, you can't have any candy, and then your kid goes to bed and you eat a bunch of candy, like it's like, is that person really a hypocrite? What I would say, I don't know that I'm going to say it's good. It's not that it's good, but it's like an aspect of humanity. And we universally want to call it bad. We want to say like it's bad. But I think the reality is that things are nuanced. There's not black and white. And hypocrisy, I think, to me, is what comes out when all that gray stuff mushes together. And so many of the things that we've talked about on this show for the past 200 plus episodes, a lot of them are muddy, and you could go through all the things we've said and accuse us all of being hypocrites because in one episode we said this and in one episode we said that, and those were hypocritical or contradictory things. But the reality is that like everything is nuanced. And if you're having a conversation with something, or even if you hold a view on something, it might change based on that context. So it's like, it's more like, I guess it's hard to make the case, is it good? But I think it's easier to make the case that it's not bad, because not bad in the way that society like labels it bad, you hypocrite.
I just think the word means bad, like, unfortunately. I mean, are you saying?
Well, it's come to mean that, but I mean that's why it's worth talking about.
Are you saying that there's irreconcilable differences in the universe, and that we have limited resources, time, energy, money with which to spend and to do things, so we can't be all of it? So that tends to.
But like, if you're annoyed at everyone who shows any amount of hypocrisy in their life, if that annoys you and you always want to point it out, like you're going to spend your whole life being annoyed and pointing out people's hypocrisy or where the world is hypocritical or you'll never get any rest.
I see
And
what you're saying. Okay, I get
it's
it.
simpler to just be like, things change and people change and things are contextual and it's like whatever. They're not a bad person.
Talk is cheap because we often express ourselves through our desires and not necessarily have a perfect. None of us has a to Z perfect self-image. Like a perfect. If someone said, "Describe yourself, all your flaws and your strengths and your habitual tendencies," you would it would be through your filter of bias about yourself, and also put your guard up a bit, maybe on that stuff, right? Is that what you're saying?
I think everyone's muddling through.
I agree with 100% what you guys are saying, but it's the element of extreme hypocrisy, not the everyday hypocrisy, the extreme hypocrisy that is what really gets my goat. And
but that stuff like
the Catholic Church, like the church and everything that they say and everything that they've done, and thou shalt not kill and thou shalt not molest little boys, and all that sort of stuff. And it's
I remember that commandment is a good one.
And then it's like, celibacy versus all this stuff. And like, it's just so like the most extreme levels of hypocrisy. And it enrages me. And it enrages me not just because of the actions, and the actions are often bad, because obviously hypocrisy is going to bother you the most if it's like, if there's some sort of violent or illegal or dangerous activity associated with it. That's always going to color it, but just on a pure high level, like where somebody takes the holier than thou approach and tells you to do something or that this is right and this is wrong. Or Bo used the example of parental figures. That's a good example. Could be religious figures, political leaders, even celebrities that have a high level of influence, and then they do something completely the other way. They violate this trust that they sort of created with you. I find those extreme levels are enraging, and they make me want to say that it's bad.
They are, but one thing what I would say about that, because it's a good point, and I agree. I feel the same way, but to some extent, it's like it's almost a different thing. So, like, if you have the example of the politician, or even just cheating on his wife or whatever, and talking about how important it is to be true or whatever. It's like when they make those statements, it's not even just that they're hypocrite; it's that they're lying to your face, And I think that's a little bit about the extreme hypocrisy. It's more like someone is, in these examples we're talking about people who are knowingly, like if you have a priest who's talking about how to be good and righteous, and he molests children. He knows he molested children, right? He knows that when he delivers his sermon. So he's a fucking liar. You know what I mean? He's lying right to you.
And it's easy to analyze that, right? It's easy to break that down and be like,
I know. But the thing is, like, there are things that if you're talking about a serial child molester, they're not forgetting that they did that, right? And they might say, "Oh, I'm a sinner," or whatever, but they're not telling people about it. There's something different about that kind of thing, where someone knowingly or to protect themselves or whatever will lie. I mean, it almost comes right down to like outright lying, and I would be like, that's bad. I think we talked about that lying, didn't we?
I think we did an episode on lying, and
I think we did. And I mean, there's the outright bold-face and the white lies, which I think we are like, you can usually forgive this.
It's funny because I think I argued that lying was good, which is kind of funny to think about.
Well, it kind of helps. I don't remember who said, but it does help you get through life. But I don't like lying, and I mean, I don't like lying in the same way. Don't like the hypocrisy is what that you like laid out, Croft, and I agree with you completely. But like, if you talk about like Bo's point about parents, it's like those parents are not like. Because I'm a parent, and I mean, there are times when I've like limited my kids like dessert. He didn't eat any vegetables or something like that, and usually I'm a softie. I usually be like, okay, you can have a little dessert. You can have like half a cookie or something like that, and he'll be like, well, I want a whole cookie. It's like, well, eat your corn or eat a carrot, But he won't do it. I eat my carrots. He goes to bed. I'll eat like 3 cookies or whatever. Does that make me a hypocrite? I don't think so. Well, I mean, it does if you're looking at it just on the basis, but the difference there is that like I have a responsibility as a parent to do certain things. a child has very little willpower when it comes to stuff like that. You have to sometimes. So it's like that kind of hypocrisy. It's not like bold-faced lying, and I think that a lot of the stuff of the do as I say, not as I do, we're all guilty of that, and it's not necessarily morally corrupt, right? But some of these like political examples or like some of the extreme ones, they're
in the one
morally corrupt.
In the one case, we're kind of nudging and actually becoming closer because of humanity. It's tough, right? Like, I know I should stop smoking, and I would tell anyone to not pick up a cigarette, and it's not cool, but I still smoke, and part of that's related to addiction, but it is hypocritical, right? Like, it is if I had kids, I would be telling them not to do any of this stuff, and I would not be encouraging it, but it would be hard for them at a certain age to listen to me because dad is doing it. And
but I
so,
mean,
like,
it's funny because even that, like in that case, you'd be like, yeah, you sound like a hypocrite, being like, oh, don't smoke. You shouldn't smoke, and you're sitting there smoking.
Of like, it's tough to be human. It's easy
But
to want the best for others, but still succumb to your quote weaknesses or your habits or things that you wish you could do better for yourself.
But
in
even
the
in
case
that
of parents,
case,
you can impose it on them. In the case of other people, you could just preach at them and just annoy them.
But I'd say beyond that, like what you're trying, if you're a smoker and you tell me don't smoke, and you're like, but I'm going to enjoy this drag a ton right now, and I like it, you might just be imparting wisdom that you would learn, right? You're like, I enjoy smoking. It's very difficult to quit. I encourage you not to smoke for your health, but I'm going to keep smoking because I'm stuck here. You're telling me something I don't I don't know. Like, I don't know what it's like to quit smoking, right? You've tried a few times. It's very difficult. If you told me don't do it, it's such a pain in the ass to quit, just don't start, I might appreciate that wisdom. Am I going to call you a hypocrite because I'm like, how dare you tell me not to smoke and look at you smoking a cigarette? No, I'm going to start smoking too. Like, I mean, that would just be silly.
See, so that's not really hypocrisy then, but I guess I was just trying to use it as an example to focus on an idea that sometimes the moral stance you take is one you generally intend for positivity, right? You intend it to be positive for the most part, and then usually the other view is always a more malicious, view of it, right? Like, you like to kill cats in an alleyway. You're a philanthropist who raises money for charities, but your hobby on the weekends is torturing cats. Like it's always bad.
Like that's Donald Trump, right? Where he wanted philanthropists, but he never really gave any his charity, just enriched himself.
Exactly. Like, there's never a hypocrisy where you're like, I like to kill cats, and everyone should kill cats. And if I was president, I'd mail everyone a cat with their tax return to fill out, and also kill the cat and mail it back to the IRS, and then find out through their hypocrisy that they're espousing this stuff, but they're really a good person that donates to charities and is actually curing cancer. Like, it never works the other way. You never find out someone's shitty.
I see what he's saying.
And then you're like, I'm a serial killer. I believe everyone should be allowed to kill. And then you find out, like,
you're not a serial killer. You're like a volunteer at a homeless shelter.
Yeah, exactly. Like, you find out, like, it never works the other way when it's like hypocrisy. It's always like, you've deceived me. You've disappointed me. You have portrayed a reputation that does not match the behaviors you have. And I think
it's funny though that you mentioned that it doesn't work the other way, because I think it does.
Yeah, give me an example. I want to hear it. I'm like stumped.
I'll give you an example of where, well, it's not quite hypocrisy, but it's that example of someone portraying something. So there's this guy at my work who's like security guard. They call him the commissionaire. And he definitely plays a super hard ass, this guy. Like, I come in and I forget my pass like once or twice a week probably, because I'm super forgetful. And I come in, I'm like, well, forgot my pass again. And he basically, ever since I've started working there, he looks at me like, stone cold face, and he's kind of like, he rolls his eyes, and I'm always like, makes me feel bad. I'm like, damn, this guy is a real hard ass. And it's been like, and I always was like, this guy's total hard ass. And then one time, and then I give him my driver's license, and then he gives me a temporary pass. The other day it was minus 25, or a week or two ago, minus 25. I biked to work. It was like wind was blowing. It was freezing cold. I got there and I was like, oh, I forgot my pass. I go to the commissioner and I said, I forgot my pass today. And he's like, he does his eye roll thing. And then I patted my side of my pants. I'm like, and I forgot my wallet too. So he's not supposed to let me in without any. I have no ID at all. And then he just kind of looks at me for a bit. And then I'm like, I guess I'll bike home. And it's like miserable outside. And then he's like, no. And he writes like on a sticky note and he lets me in. Now, according to he should not have done that according to his job. But he did, and then there was one or two other things like that. At the Christmas holidays, he let my wife in, but I'm like, this guy plays a hard ass, and he plays it, but he's this real softy, real sweetheart.
He's like all the characters in Home Alone.
Yes, you know, that's also what I was thinking was the Home Alone old man too.
Yeah, the old man in Home Alone or the pigeon woman in Home Alone 2, Lost in New York. Exactly. It's like, oh my God, they're so evil, but in fact, they have a heart of gold. But I do think that that there are people that like to, you know, yeah, I killed a lot of people. I'm really tough, or I got in tons of bar fights in college. You know, like and then didn't like that will lie. To make themselves appear tougher, but it's rare that it's an exact opposite where it's like they're lying about that, but they're also helping people. They got hurt in fights,
I've got the perfect reversal one. I've got it.
Okay, what is it?
Schindler. You're a Nazi, you got to be all Nazi and shit, and then you're actually saving the Jews and trying to get them out of there.
Yeah, but
he's a good hypocrite.
You think like the Fuhrer would be like, you hypocrite?
Yeah, Oscar, you are a hypocrite. That is, you know what the worst part is, Oscar? It's not the Jews. It's the hypocrisy.
Exactly.
He's like, look, I have done some bad things, but you, sir.
You don't deserve the fatherland. Wait till I tell the Fuhrer. Like, no,
the hypocrisy.
I'm cool with this hypocrisy. Yes, pretend to be a Nazi and do good things to save people how you can.
I think we could forgive him his hypocrisy. You know, like that's a bit of a different situation.
But it's a situation where you can't look at it and say what you revealed from his hypocrisy was worse than what was the actual. Like you're like, yes, be hypocritical, cool. So,
I think it's part of, but it's part of that
people
whole
revolting
belief
against
thing.
Tyranny is a good example of hypocrisy.
It's what you believe. Like it's like, yeah, if you're running the Underground Railroad, but but publicly you're trying to pass bills to reinstitute or reinforce slavery, that's major hypocrisy. But if you're just putting on a facade while you do something, you pursue your true sort of, to survive in society, it's nebulous there if that's really like really hypocrisy.
I mean, it all has to do with deceit, lying, and reputation at the end of the day, I think. Because I think the more human stuff is like just the toughness of dealing with humanity and less
just
hypocrisy.
Before we roll into verdicts, I just want it noted this episode that we should, if ever we're looking for a good clip of Bo, he has at least 30 seconds where he talks about killing cats, and taken out of context.
Will haunt him.
Just the way the verb tense he's using and the way that he's speaking, just taking that singular clip, you could have a lot of fun with it. So anybody who's listening who has the skills, find the Bo Cat quotes and use them with good jurisprudence.
Was it that funny? I so rarely get a compliment from Crofton, and he's like, "This is really." Really
is it a
I don't
compliment,
think he means
though?
it as a compliment. He's like, use it against him to make
him it's more just, I'm just saying, like, note this episode because there's a big rant about Bo killing cats.
Well, Clown Baby,
it's worth using for evil.
Clown Baby still has my picture of the guitar hand. Anyways, at one time we played this online game where you can draw and you have to guess what it is, and I drew a guy playing guitar, but there was like sweat coming off the fingers. I don't know why. It's a bad drawing, but it kind of looks like a penis shaft with like cum dripping off of it. And he saves it and he posts it. Scott and I's conversations every now and then.
I feel like you probably did that on purpose. You were probably like that preacher who was like, it was a guitar.
I was being a hypocrite. No, it was not on purpose. It was really badly drawn.
I don't know.
I just feel that you can't draw without something looking like a penis.
I saw what I was drawing. Oh, yeah, and the thing I had to draw, like the word I was given was unfinished business. Was that what it was? I don't know. No, that was a different picture. That was a picture of a man with an erect penis and a woman holding his hand out, going like, "No, we're done here," because he didn't get to finish.
All right, well, we're going to get to finish because we're going to roll out into verdicts right
Sweet,
now.
I get to finish.
Let's
That's
bring
great.
in the farm animals.
We're not hypocritical here. We actually get to finish shows.
Order, I say. Order in the court.
Order in the court, everyone. I think I'll go first. I'll take this one first. I feel like you guys are a bit impassioned in a certain way, and I'm weirded out by the cat compliment. Hypocrisy. I think it is like... I know I said lying was good, but I think lying is good because lying is a tool in our toolkit, and listen to that show if you want the information on that one. But I do think... Well, no, the Schindler thing, yeah, I've got to go with bullshit, you guys. I forgot about Schindler. I was going to go straight bad, but I'm like, no, I like the fact that not just...
Oh, you hypocrite. You change your verdict.
I like the fact that we can use hypocrisy as a means to an end in order to accomplish good things. I'm sure I've got the definition wrong in that case, but I'm going with it, so we're just going to let the cow moo, and I'm going to go with bullshit. It's bullshit. I can't go full good on hypocrisy, but it's a good bullshit. Who's next?
I guess I'll go.
Crofton should go next because he's got to do all the spiel. So.
I'll go next. Look, this is one that is it can't be. It's pretty much can't be good unless you do mental gymnastics to get there. It's either going to be bad or it's going to be bullshit. And for me, it's I think when the word hypocrisy is used in conversation, and when somebody says, Mike, you're a fucking hypocrite or something. It could be anyone, but let's say it was Mike. Then it's said in such a way that it's insulting. It's also accusatory, and in such a way as to diffuse their argument or diffuse their point. The time that you're calling someone a hypocrite is often in a situation of argumentation or like in a conflict over an issue. It would be every once in a while you might call somebody a hypocrite, or you might read a news article and be like, oh my God, what a hypocrite. But odds are you already have strong opinions towards that person. It's never a positive thing. So the extreme examples of hypocrisy are ones that absolutely enrage me, but at the same point I give Mike and Bo their point of everyone being a hypocrite at one time or another, that it's impossible to get away from it, that it's not necessarily the worst thing ever, and doesn't mean that you're the worst person of all time because you were hypocritical. But it's not generally a positive attribute, and I don't see there being enough positive surrounding it that would make me want to say make me want to say that it's bullshit. So I'm gonna take the stand on hypocrisy and hypocrites in general and just say, like, hypocrisy is bad. Do what you say, stand by what you believe as much as you can, So.
Crofton, you hypocrite, because I've seen you display your own hypocrisy on this show many times, and yet you call hypocrisy bad? Sir.
I bet you can't come up with an example right now of a time I was a hypocrite on this show.
But you know what? I forgive your hypocrisy because I think hypocrisy is bullshit. I agree with Bo. Get the bullshit out of the way.
Oh, is it bullshit? You went out. You said it already.
Moo!
Well, your rhythm's all off. We left ours to the
Sorry,
end.
whatever. I like to throw a curveball at you. So yeah, I think it's bullshit because everyone is guilty of it. I think nuance and shades of gray, and also being able to learn from past views that you held, those are all realities of life, and the learning from past views are good. Like I would feel bad if I called someone for hypocrite for some stance they held 5 years ago that now they don't hold if they've learned something in that time and changed their view. I'd be a jerk if I was calling them a hypocrite, calling them out on that.
That's different.
Oh,
That's an
you hypocrite,
evolving
Crofton.
opinion. Oh, fine, whatever.
Anyways, let me finish my verdict.
Sorry.
So I think a lot of hypocrisy is forgivable just because it's like, you know, you're living in a complicated world. Sometimes you're going to say something that's going to come back to bite you, or in ways you didn't even think of when you said a certain thing. And in the ones that are like outright that really irritate you, those are usually just because someone is lying, you know, or someone is doing or defrauding you, or you know, willfully doing something that's morally reprehensible in those cases. So all the examples I think that we think of as really bad, the thing that annoys me more is someone bald-faced lying to me. That's really what it is. And they're also a hypocrite in that case. But I think there's something else layered on top of it, which is what makes it so egregious. So I think bullshit's the way I'm going to land on this. And yeah.
Cool. That's one bad and two bullshits.
So,
Indeed.
So what do we call that? The pinch?
It's like a sandwich. It's a bad sandwich.
Because it'd have to be one bullshit to be a pinch.
I'm curious, now we're 230 episodes deep. I'm curious about this the splits in certain ways. Like, has there ever been a verdict? Has there ever been a topic before where Bo and Mike have said it's bullshit and Crofton has says it's bad? Like, maybe there has, but I'm starting to get curious about those things and being like when it's less than a regular breakdown, I start thinking like, have we ever had this exact breakdown before? If you know, you could send us an email. And you could also say what you think about hypocrisy.
Wait, speaking of email, there's one coming in.
Wait. They must have sent it to goodbadbull@gmail.com.
You're absolutely correct, Crofton. They did. And this week we've got a new email from one of our patrons from the land. He's a Swedish patron, not Norwegian. I think I referred to Lennart on the show before. It's our patron, Lennart. I got it wrong. Do you live in Norway? Or are you just Swedish and am I just really dumb? Sorry about that, but our Swedish patron. I'm actually kind of proud that Leonard's part of the show. It just feels great to have international
that was a long
reach.
time ago Leonard wrote in. Nice to hear
so
from
thank
him
you, Leonard. He's been a long-time patron of the show. And he says, I'm listening to the podcast version, not on Twitch, so I'm a bit behind Calendar Bite.
Yeah,
I think,
a lot, Bo.
It's my bad, you guys. We're getting those shows out there. You keep it locked at goodbadbull.com. After listening to GBB 227 that came out today, January 25th, I thought I'd send you a comment. And this comment is really good. I think Bo has an overly positive view of Norway. Don't get me wrong, Norway is a great country, but I don't think it's quite as fantastic as Bo said. Thanks. And he sends us a link.
Checks out.
Norwegian Politics for Dummies, and it's actually pretty interesting information about Norway. And that's probably true. I haven't been to Norway. I know people who've gone and have reported actually like loving visiting there. And I think you, Mike, have informed information about.
My brother-in-law went there. He said a hot dog cost $17, and I was like, Norway! How
is it? Wait, is it Norway dollars?
I think it was equivalent. Whatever it was
17
it was a lot of money for a hot dog.
Jesus, worse than California. Oh my God.
Maybe in Norway, hot dogs are like exotic cuisine.
Well, they're all rich, right? They have like $1 trillion fund from their oil.
Well, let's not compound any ignorant comments. It was directed at me, so maybe Mike's fine about it. But thank you for sending the link, Leonard. Thank you for writing in. We love hearing from our patrons, and I will definitely temper my view of Norway and stop spreading Norwegian propaganda.
Well, his point is well taken, because I think so often you can you blanket these countries. A lot of the the Scandinavian countries will be like, oh, they're ahead socially, but it's like, yeah, every country's gonna have its.
You hear one good thing about them, and you just lock on it because your country's shit. Like, I hate the 5-day work week here. I think it's Norway that has the shorter week, right? Or shorter hours or something like that.
Well, Well, you know, it's
think
funny
it's
because,
that.
like, in some ways, Canada is also a good example of that, where a lot of people are like, Canadian, Canada is such a, good country. But I'm like, yeah, there's some annoying shit that goes on here, too. Like,
Yeah,
I
people
mean,
here work themselves to the bone, man. It's annoying. More to life than that. Anyways, thank you so much for your email, and we'll let Crofton continue on now that we're done interrupting his.
Yeah,
no
thanks for
show.
the email.
Right. Sorry. Yeah, I was doing the business. So, you can send us an email like our good friend Lennart from Norway. That's goodbadbull.
He's not from Norway. He's Swedish.
Sweden. He's
What?
from Sweden.
He's just
Sweden?
Swedish. Yeah.
He was shitting on Norway.
he's,
Oh, wait a second. I'm super confused. So Lennart is actually from Sweden and not Norway, but
I don't
he was.
know where he lives now. We're not necessarily going to out where he lives on the
No,
show.
wait.
but
Are you telling me he was shitting on Norway from Sweden? Because that's different than if he lives in Norway and he's shitting on.
No, let's not throw any shade on Sweden. Let's not throw shade on Sweden, where our international patron is from.
I'm just saying that if you're not from the country, don't throw shit on it.
He didn't throw shit on it. He just said he thought I had an overly positive opinion.
He's like, you know, Bo, you think very highly of Norway, but here in Sweden, we hate those fuckers.
And actually, this is super timely because Crofton, you goddamn hypocrite, I've heard you shit on the United States on this podcast, and here you are saying not to shit on other countries that you don't live in.
Yeah, you hypocrite. We shit on the States all the time.
Everybody knows that's what Australians do.
That's true.
Lord Shaper. All right. You can also follow us on Twitter at goodbadbull. We got a Facebook as well there. Facebook's something/goodbadbull. Goodbadbull is the keyword. Go to goodbadbull.com. You can find all our old episodes there. There's 230 and counting. And you can also go on and give us a nice, sweet review on iTunes or wherever you get your podcasts. I recommend 5 stars. I haven't tried any of the other reviews, but 5 stars seems to be the one that
I like your take on that. I recommend 5 stars.
The most people.
Usually, if they ask if the show's like, please give us 5 stars. You're like, I recommend 5 stars is the best tasting of the 5.
I've never seen someone give another one, so I can't really. It's like you go to a restaurant, they always order the hamburger. They're always doing the 5 stars. So I mean, like, you should probably just get that. That's what it's known for.
Perfect.
And we're individuals of an individual nature. Let's figure out where we can reach these fine gents individually. Bo, where can people find you?
At Bo Schwartz, where you can find out where shows are going live, when I'm posting the Good, Bad, or Bullshit episodes, as well as Core and Derby Dungeons episodes. Some of the shows I do. So come say hi. I like getting your tweets and messages and hanging out.
Speaking to people who don't like getting your tweets and messages and hanging out, Mike, where can the people reach you?
They could reach me in reality, hanging out with actual human beings in person from time to time.
Okay, doesn't sound like you're very accessible.
You're like, lame, boring, reality sucks.
Reality bites.
Meet you on the internet.
And they can follow me at Crofton Steers on Twitter. So that's it, gents. Before we go, and I'm putting you guys on the spot here. I don't know if this is possible to do. It would be interesting maybe to do on an anniversary episode of our show where we could do the homework beforehand. But do you guys know what your biggest whatever, you're a hypocrite on this show is like 2 verdicts. A verdict where you gave good and then maybe you gave bad on something else, like lying and hypocrisy. You could have. Do you know where your biggest
Didn't I do
gap is?
a bad on recycling, but then something else environmentally friendly was good? I think I have one of those.
Yeah, Bo definitely is the easiest hypocrite to pick out.
Well, we did one recently where I called Bo out on something, and I forget what it was.
I think Bo's is the one that's most likely to be hypocritical because he's very mood driven in his verse.
And he goes extreme. He goes extreme on some of the things. Like he'll say something is good, and you'll be like, "Holy smokes, I can't believe."
But I think he had it. Yeah, there was something environmental recently. Oh, the disposable culture. I think he was all like,
But
Yeah,
I did issue
the
an
disposable culture. He was like, yeah, so we throw all this shit away, and then he said that's bad. But then he also said recycling was bad.
I did issue a retraction about my verdict on recycling.
You can't retract it. You
Yeah, he did. He said it was his most
You let me.
Here lies Bo Schwartz,
You let me.
hypocrite, as outlined in episode 133
But
of GBB.
I think I still qualify as a hypocrite because I'll be like, yeah, I guess saving the environment's good, but like, fucking still litter, man.
you throw shit in the street?
No, I don't throw shit in the street.
I
But
think
like,
there was a sex thing.
there's like trash and recycling, and I'll just put everything in the trash. I'm not super.
You're a real
obedient.
bastard. It's not that hard to recycle, for God's sake.
I just hate being told what to do. I have enough people telling me what to do in my life. I want garbage cans to tell me where to put my garbage.
Wait until we're all in the hive
trash.
mind together. We'll tell you what to do more than ever before.
Well, I'm sure, Crofted, to your question, I'm sure I have lots of hypocrisy strewn about, but I can't. I need to look at the list. I don't
Yeah,
wanna
me
waste
too.
anyone's time.
I do think it would be worth doing on an episode, like a milestone episode. Be like, we do our awards, our famous good, bad, bullshit
Oh,
awards.
yeah,
We could
those are
have
some good awards.
we could have one dedicated to the biggest hypocrite or the biggest like.
What were the names of those?
Yeah.
I'm now counting on the fact that you won't remember any of this. So
Well, luckily it's
I'll
recorded
find it
for
when
I wanted
posterity.
to say one thing real quick, just because listeners, now that we're at the end of the show, I feel okay doing this. But we are a live show, and there are live viewers in the chat room, and I feel like
Okay.
when I was calling Leonard our international patron and like praising him, and filleting him in a way
Orally.
like, yeah, AURALY, and we love him. But there's a lot of Americans in the chat, and they're international too, and it's just like whatever. Because we don't really, you're international, but we consider you like North America, so you're not.
I feel like Americans would be like, America's not international. Other countries are international. America's home.
There's some truth.
Or they'd be
to
like,
that,
you're
too.
international. I'm not international.
But they are international to us, and we value
us.
you too. But you're not exotic like someone from Sweden.
Especially
or
now, they're even
Australia.
more international now that we have all these trade tariffs thanks to their idiot president.
Like, your cities kind of look like our cities. I go to California and feel right at home. I don't feel like.
He kills cats there too.
Yeah. All right. Let's not talk about my cat killing. Let's end the show. You guys want
But
the
they
show?
have
End
lower
the show,
tax.
Bo.
End the show. Show's over. End it. It's cut. It's
He
ended.
said-
Like I ended the cat's life.
I like how Clown Baby in the chat is like, Mike, why are we from the South?
Hell, boy, it's America.
We're basically being racist. That's how Canadians be racist towards Americans.
I'm not worried about
'cause you
being
guys
racist
have
towards,
America of
towards
the
white
South.
American male. It's not. I'm like, oh no, I've offended the
No,
white
because I
American
kind of do
male.
it too. Whenever I'm doing an American, I don't pick New Yorker or Minnesotan or whatever. I'm always like, I'm from America, like, because you're all South. Like, I realize South is just a portion of the states, but you're all.
And no one's
South
gonna
to
pick
us.
like urban America. They're like, oh hello, I'm from Portland, Oregon. It's very nice to meet you. And like, boring. Everyone wants to like gun-toting crazy from the the South.
I mean, but
I
it's
disavow
racism.
these two.
Or-
I disavow.
You guys
I
do it to us
disavow.
all. Scott always gets a kick out of when I'm like doing my Canadian. I did it on Core this week, where it's just like we tell our kids there when they're born, you miss 100% of the shots you don't take, eh? It's like, all the doctors say that to the
That's not
newborns
bad.
because we love Wayne Gretzky up here. They love it.
Oh yeah, hey bud.
Hey
We'll
bud.
go out there.
Hey bud, welcome
Hey,
to
bud.
the world. I'm the doctor that gave birth to you. Hey. Just remember, there's a great one. His name's Wayne Gretzky, and he says you don't miss 100 shots, or what? I forget to say. You don't miss 100% of the shots you take, or something like that. Anyways,
Yeah.
that was a good show. It was energetic. It was lively.
Was
it was
it?
funny.
It was fun. I had a good time.
I feel like we.
I
Alright, yeah, I had a
enjoyed
good
doing
time.
I
it.
feel like we insulted a lot of cultures, like
Yeah.
Germany, Sweden,
So,
Norwegian,
Part of the course.
Americans.
Yeah, I like how I'm questioning. I'm like, really?
Did we? Could
Well, America doesn't count. What kind of culture? We have like basically the same.
You hypocrite! You're just like we don't. You literally just said you're like we don't do that, and then you just were like Americans. Who cares?
Well, I'm kind of joking at the moment, but yeah.
we don't have Applebee's here.
You know what we do have is Perkins. I went there the day. Well, I mean, a few months ago, and I will never go there again. It was horrible.
What's
Really?
Perkins?
Eh?
I think it's an American chain.
Denny's is good.
Good might be. Actually, that Oreo pie thing they do, man, that's pretty good.
That's pretty good.
Yeah.
But it's just like a pile of cream and Oreo cookies. It's hard to screw that up. Like if you were to just dump a bunch of Oreo cookies covered in cream and ice cream, and it was a pile, you'd be like, yeah, that's pretty good. Like I mean, you can't mess.
I don't know how they do it here because the only time I eat at Denny's is when I fly for BlizzCon. There's a Denny's near the hotel area.
When I fly for BlizzCon.
Every second or third week when I went down to
I'm up at BlizzCon
Get down there,
again.
they're like, hey, Bo, welcome to BlizzCon. God damn it. Because it's in America.
But like
All the American people are like,
But like I
hate
go
mail
to Denny's
too.
and the hamburgers are massive there. They're like the size of the plate. Do they do that here in Canada?
No, the portions are for sure big. I remember learning that when I was young, and I went to McDonald's, and I supersized whatever combo I got, and the French fry was like, holy shit, it's huge, and it was way bigger than, at least at the time, we could get in Canada. I think
Okay.
we've since caught up and offer now.
I don't know if
Massive.
we caught up.
The Denny's
But,
burgers were massive, and it was free refills too, which is hilarious.
Yeah, no, it's true.
My poor
Americans like
bladder wouldn't be able to
It was
do
a lot
that.
of food. Mind you, I
portion.
hadn't eaten for 12 hours, so I was happy to ingest all of it, but there was regrets.
Yeah,
Hey, I should
you
see
usually regret eating at Denny's.
I should see Enter the Spider-Verse again because I think I went pee 4 times.
You
Did
missed- you
pee
missed,
a
like, the
lot. I was
solid 10
like,
minutes
what the
of
hell is
movie.
going on here?
So I missed a big chunk of it. I should probably see
I did
that.
enjoy going to the movies with you guys the other day. It was fun.
Yeah,
It helps when it's a really good movie. That movie kept me enthralled the entire time.
It was a good movie. I enjoyed it very much.
Go see that movie. Is it still in theaters?
better
Whatever.
be. It's super good.
Yeah. All
Watch
right.
it in the comfort of your own home.
Yeah, no joke. I'm gonna buy that Blu-ray, and I don't normally buy it.
Blu-ray. But in my day, we had video cassettes where you could put them in and just stream it. God, that was the times.
No, but yeah.
A
I wanna own
Blu-ray
it.
in my player. Look at
Yeah, you're gonna buy it for Blu-ray, and it'll be like on Netflix.
Yeah, exactly.
No,
You're
it's gonna
feel
be.
like a
It's gonna
chump.
take forever for it to be on Netflix. I want to see it again in March. It's coming out on March. I'll get the
Then your
laser.
baby's gonna like scratch it. You can be like, "Oh, my Blu-ray's all
No, because now
scratchy,
you
it won't work
buy it.
anymore."
The Blu-ray comes with the digital copy. Come on, Hodgins.
What's the point then? Just get the
Well, it's
digital
just you get
copy.
multiple copies.
You don't want. Why do you need the plastic? What's
But
it
why-
doing?
But because you put it in the machine and it plays the movie.
Yeah, but if you can buy these things on just digital version now, and you just have the digital version.
But then I'd have to download it.
Okay,
You have to download the digital version anyway.
But like what?
is
To download
downloading
it
so hard?
on my PlayStation?
You're like, oh, the effort of clicking download.
My
is
computer's
so-
not connected to my TV. Like,
You
what am
can
I
do
down?
it, you can do it on your TV. There's ways to buy movies right on your TV.
Fine.
Whatever, I don't care. Buy a Blu-ray. I think Mike's
Also, I
just enjoying
thought,
making
yeah,
fun of you.
Crofton liked the environment, but here he is, the hypocrite, buying a bunch of plastic shit he doesn't need. Crofton, you've been shown a hypocrite like 8 times on this show.
You fucking hypocrite, Crofton. What is wrong with you? God, Jesus.
I'm looking forward to looking at mine because I'm sure there's lots.
Yeah, no, I can't think of. It is true when Bo goes hypocrite, he goes big hypocrite.
Oh,
He
yeah.
he doesn't do small H, he goes big H. You know, like where's for
Like
us,
full retraction words.
yeah, but I would like to retract what I said before and say the complete opposite.
My life is full of contradictions. I have a feeling I contributed this topic too, with the express purpose of probably trying to argue it was good.
I thought it was me, but
Oh,
either way,
it was you.
Wasn't me.
We have to have a meeting soon, boys.
yeah, we do. We need to replenish
Start thinking about those topics.
the hopper.
That's right. So, yeah, that was good.
And
All right.
chat room, if you are here still hanging out and you have an idea for a topic, like put it on a YouTube comment or
Send
email
it
to
in.
goodbadbull
What did you say? Put it on a YouTube?
YouTube comment. Our videos are live. I mean, that's a place to get at us, or get at the Twitter account.
I like how we give the spiel of like all these ways to reach us. I've never heard
Actually,
Go
comment
on our
on the
YouTube
YouTube account is the best way to reach us.
I post through WordPress on our Twitter account, but I just realized I haven't actually logged into it in maybe a year. I have it on my TweetDeck though.
I also have this because I don't think I've ever read comments on YouTube. That might be a true statement. But I assume that they're all like asshole trolley comments. So someone will go there and be like, "Oh, I think this topic would be
It
good,"
depends-
and
it
there's just like
depends on
100 comments of like, "You suck. This video blows."
It depends on the community. I've seen some good ones. Honestly, I've seen some like YouTube comment things where they're like civil discourses happening, but a lot of them no.
Like on our videos, people.
No, not on our videos. Please.
What was I thinking?
Well, no, nobody posts period on our videos.
It's true.
We're not big stars
Yeah,
yet, Mike.
So Lord Shaper wants
Maybe
to know,
by episode 400.
What did you say, Bo?
Lord Shaper actually was asking us on Twitter, do we think we're getting replicants or flying cars first this year?
Flying cars is coming before replicants. Though the Chinese baby, it's basically a replicant, right?
Man.
But not really.
Damn,
That's the thing. Replicants, they weren't really like.
Clown Baby's been building an AT-AT.
Hey, did you guys hear about the Jeff Bezos story? Blackmail story?
About his wife? Wait.
Yeah,
what?
well, like just today, he's gone. The National Enquirer, who is like the owner of which is really controversial, doing business with the Saudis, catching Donald Trump negative stories. It's just come out fairly recently. Anyway, the Washington Post, which Jeff Bezos owns, is doing this big investigative reporting on the National Enquirer's and its ownership's relationship
He
with
sicked his Washington Post on them.
with the Saudis. No, he has nothing to do. Like he's saying he has nothing to do. Like they do their own investigative work, but they've contacted him, and the Enquirer has, and the organization that owns it, and are saying that like if he doesn't interfere and have the Washington Post stop investigating, their relationship with the Saudis or whatever, that like they'll publish these dick pics they got of him and all that sort of stuff. And so Jeff Bezos just released all their emails essentially and said like pretty much bring it on today, and that he's not like this is the type of organization that this is. But it's super funny because I did see a guy on Twitter like when he was quoting the story was just like, wow, it must be nice to have enough money to be like, fuck it, publish my dick pics. I don't give a shit, I'm rich, bitch.
Oh, that's what he said?
What you gonna do,
Well, good for him in some ways.
Yeah. Well, like he's getting ahead of blackmail. It's like, and his point is like, if I bent to this sort of blackmail, he's like, how could anybody from say the Post or any of these people, like they could be blackmailed. I couldn't hold them to the same, standards. But he's just like, it's an interesting story. I thought it was.
I haven't heard it, but I might look.
Yeah, it just sort of broke today. But I do think it's funny.
Maybe the bonuses will get to see a pic of Jeff Bezos' penis too.
Yeah. Oh, what's funny, by the way, is if you read the email, like he shared this email that they list all the photos that they have of him. Okay, and they describe each of them, but like in a way that's like lawyers speak, kind of, but like in a way that's like
very like.
It feels
analytical.
Like, well, it feels a bit like erotic fiction where they're like, Mr. Bezos seated with tented pants, but fully clothed, but clearly aroused or whatever. Photo number 5, like Mrs. So-and-so, fully clothed, but with a deep cut neckline that exposes some of her private areas or whatever. It's just like this list of descriptive, but I'm like, oh man, this thing is so sleazy. It's crazy.
Well, the National Enquirer is sleazy.
Yeah, I know. Well, it's even sleazier than you thought it was. So, because they hide behind these journalistic principles, that's the thing. Like, because why can they publish these things, right? Like these private photos that they've hacked or that they've got access to, and they quote these sort of journalistic codes that say like, oh, it displays like it's part of characterizing Bezos's judgment, you know, because if he takes these dick pics, then maybe he doesn't have great judgment, therefore he shouldn't be running this company that's making a ton of money, you know, like that's why they're using that as grounds for like, oh, it's of public interest to release these dick pics. I just like seeing dick pics.
It's in the public good to see those.
Yeah.
Well,
all right.
This has been fun conversation, fellas.
All right.
It was
Well,
a good time.
I might play
appreciate
some
doing the
games.
show. We're gonna post an episode tomorrow, so we'll meet our, we'll be on time. We're getting back in the swing of things after the Christmas.
What episode are we posting tomorrow? Just out of curiosity.
Episode 132.
228. 228.
What's the topic? Do you remember?
I don't. I usually have to open up the file, listen, and go like, "Oh yeah, we talked about that," and start.
I could say, was it renting?
No, I think renting already went up. I think it was the last one we
Bottled water.
Did we do bottled water? That sounds familiar.
Fortune telling.
Do bottled water. We have some good episodes actually. I know we're having a hard time meeting our commitment to post the shows, but they've been actually really good lately.
What's the last one that's up?
It's renting, I think.
Oh, it's up. Okay, good.
Yeah, don't worry, we're not that far behind, guys. Come on.
Good job, Bo. You hold the ship together.
I'm holding
All
the
right.
ship together. Renting
Hey,
property.
Bo.
Yeah, and I like the sweet picture I have for it too. It's pretty cool.
I didn't see it.
Hey, Bo.
You see the chain restaurants one? It's a picture of me at McDonald's. Yeah, Crawford.
Oh, that one I saw and I liked it.
Do you want to play that Apex Legends game?
Yes.
Yes.
Sweet. You guys should just move in together.
Yeah, we can be gay.
And just play all
All
day
right.
long.
All right. Chat room, thank you so much for hanging out. It's an honor to have you here. There's a bunch of you in there. I don't know. There was way more. It said it vacillated between 5 and 8, but every time I opened up the user list, it was way more than 8. There was
9.
I mean, it was 10 or 12, but it was way more than you. I just love having you around. So thank you so much for that.
Sorry.
All right, I'm turning off the stream. End the stream. Bye. End the stream.